How's it going, YouTube? Coming in today with another video, and today, guys, the video is going to be where to hand trap. This is really intuitive because there's going to be a lot of things that have changed over the last couple of weeks, and there's going to be things changing moving forward. But as far as right now and where our format is currently at, these are going to be the spots where I would hand trap, and these are things that I want to share with you. So definitely go ahead and check out my sponsors over on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, and Grimoire down below in the description. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you aren't already so we can hit our goal at 30,000. Now let's hop right into where to hand trap. So the first one I'll talk about today is going to be Yummy. So this has a lot of nuance in it. And the first one I'm going to start with is Nibiru. Because if your opponent has Obedience Schooled and you have Nibiru, you're actually in a very good position. If you let your opponent just full combo, just do whatever they're going to do, pass on like the Starham, their Synchro, the Link 1, let them do it all. Then let them set cards, right? Wait till the very end of main phase. Don't shotgun it right away. Wait till they go, alright, I'm gonna set one, which is always just surprise. They search it through the combo. Then go end of main Nibiru. Because your opponent can't link one. They can't make a link spider, which is hilarious, right? So you summon Nibiru, and then when they pass back to you, if they try to use surprise to get back to like a synchro, so in case you do anything, they can tag out and play again, you just call battle with your Nibiru, right? You just beat over the synchro and then play in main phase 2, right? So Nibiru in this matchup is really good, and that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind. The other one here is going to be DD Crow whenever your opponent goes field spell target one engrave to reborn. This is huge because if your opponent starts like normal summon the cookie, go into their link 1, and then go field spell to reborn, then you chain DD Crow, they're in a really awkward spot, so definitely something to keep in mind. Bell onto the tag out of a synchro. If you're trying to outplay your opponent by baiting a synchro to tag out, then chaining Bell, you'll leave your opponent with very little resource. Or if you have a play like Nibiru, and then you have Bell for the surprise, you're also in a very good position. Ash on Obedience Schooled because it's Obedience Schooled. The other really good play to do is that if your opponent starts with Hornet Drone, and they go Hornet Drone, Kagari back to Hornet Drone, go into their synchro, the Cups of Yummy way that goes ahead and search 2, you definitely just Ash that, which is really good. So that's something also to keep in mind. Ogre, instead of on the field spell, if your opponent's going first, if your opponent goes normal summon the cookie, and then they go link 1 effect, and you Ogre the link 1, you put them on you better have an extender, which is really insane. A lot of times they just pass at that point. If they're going second, I'm hitting the minion all day long. All day I'm hitting minion, because again, their monsters can't get big enough to kill yours. Failure Imperm, pretty mid in this matchup. I do like holding Imperm for my own turn and hitting Arclight if you are an Imperm, or you can throw Valor at Cupsy as well, so you can deny your opponent the access to things like Surprise. The next one being Canine Crestron. Before we talk about where to hand trap this deck, I do want to bring up Mega Fleet again. This deck is starting to gain a little bit of popularity. Even if you're just siding a copy of Mega Fleet, I think that it's very advantageous of you in an event, because if you do run into this deck, it is very, very free if you have this card. You use your opponent's Infinity and the SP in their extra monster zone to just make a Mega Fleet. You just go MainPhaze, Mega Fleet. And then it's 2400 attack. So it beats over Ripper or Tristaros, or if they already make a Dawn Dragster, which is unlikely, then you can just go ahead and swing over that as well. So this one monster being without 2 huge problems, and then attack over 1 of 3 other problems is really free. Even if you brick on hand traps, you summon Mega Fleet, then you just go swing over something else, then you make Typhon, and then you bounce something else. So now you have Typhon and hand traps going back into your opponent's board, even if you bricked. And I think that's really powerful. Let's talk about where to hand trap the deck. So any kind of canine variant, I'm still going to be talking about getting rid of the Lupus if it's on your own turn, of course, or your opponent can't just like surprise you with a Nash Knight or like a Valon. So disregard that for the most part, but if your opponent does threaten you with like a Zuna Lupus, know that you should have an out for it if you already have it in hand, and you should try to plan for that to be a thing to happen during your turn. One of the cards I really like to DD Crow, and that's why there's a question mark over it, is Sulfafnir. If your opponent has it in Grave, and they use the effect to go ahead and discard one, summon it, and then summon it and blow itself up, right? Then it's really good to go ahead and just DD Crow this card when your opponent pitches for cost. I really like that a lot. But there's definitely going to be different combos that your opponent does. That's why there's a question mark. Sometimes your opponent is going to be going Inclusion, target Tristaros, to bring back the Tristaros, to use that with like a Sulfador, right, on board to make like the Eliskeltis. So at that point, you can just chain DD Crow and then banish the Tristaros, which is always going to be a really nice play to do. It's really going to depend on what you put your opponent on, but I do think hitting the Sulfafnir in this situation is really strong. No one plays a Nova target, If your opponent does have a Tristaros, then I wouldn't throw Nibiru on Nova. But if there is no Tristaros, then this is perfectly fine. Samurai Destroyer also isn't that popular anymore, so it would be fine even if they did have a Tristaros. Because if they can't go into a Samurai Destroyer, then they can't bring back the Nova, then to go ahead and summon Infinity over the Nova. The whole reason why people were saying don't Nibiru on Nova is because your opponent could be playing like Makaba or something. That isn't real. That's not going to happen. If you run into someone doing that, it's at table 500, right? Like, it's just not popular. So this is something where with Samurai Destroyer and a fusion target not being that popular, throwing Nib at the Nova summon is really strong and catches a lot of people off guard because a lot of people feel safe when they summon Nova because they're like, oh, surely they wouldn't throw it here. Yeah, we do. Bell on Eliscaltus is really strong because you can stop one of two things. You can either stop the on-summon effect to add something back, and then you don't have to worry about the trap card if your opponent already uses Smyger to search. Or you can use Bell on the effect Engrave when they try to reborn the Tristaros, which means that you don't have to deal with Dawn Dragster on your own turn. For Ash, Veiler, Imperium, it's all the same. If your opponent needs the Riverstormer to go into their Crestron combo, then you want to go ahead and throw the negate at that. But if you see your opponent already with the Sulfador on board, I'm just going to stop that to deny access to my opponent getting into all their Crestron cards, which is usually just the better one, and you'll see this really quick off of like Joko Summon Sulfador effect, so they're not machine locked immediately, and that's usually where you'll see it. So your hand traps are usually always going to be on Sulfador, but if your opponent has an awkward hand and they need to get to their Crestron engine, then you'll just stop the Stormer. And then you can also just ogre the cluster, so you don't have to worry about this. Against Draco Tail, a lot of this deck is just hand traps now. The Shaddoll variants aren't even that popular. A lot of it's just like Draco Tail K9, but it's just like a very small K9 package. That's why I just named it Draco Tail. But DD Crow onto adding back off of the fusion is really nice if your opponent's trying to add back like a Lucius or something that they want to summon. I really like DD Crow on the Urgula effect trying to add back the Femina, because you deny your opponent access to playing on your turn, which is really nice, plus they just lose the Femina, which is really awkward. They have to get it back with like a trap card putting it to the bottom of the deck, right, which isn't great. Against this deck, 99.9% of the time you're just belling the Lupus, because the fusion is always going to be chain blocked, unless they really want to let something else resolve, but usually it's always chain blocked and you'll never have the opportunity to do this. Veiler Imperm onto the fusion is very important. If you have Droplet, Chalice, whatever you have, definitely throw it at the fusion, because a lot of times your opponent's going to be like throwing their whole hand in the graveyard, right? And if you deny them access to getting that back, that's going to be very strong. So definitely keep that in mind. You can definitely stop the Lucius, but I'm probably just going after the fusion because I don't want my opponent to be able to get their whole hand back, right? Which is kind of crazy. Then Ash onto Rahu or to Ketu. If your opponent's going first, I think Rahu is definitely correct. If your opponent's going second, I'm negating the Ketu. I think this card is crazy. I'm throwing Ash at that all day long because it's not a Draco Tail that you have to summon. You just get to fuse into a dragon or a spellcaster, right? Which is a lot more generic and something that I don't want to happen. That's how you get Dragoon dropped on you, right? So that's something that you should definitely consider. Stop the Ketu if they're going second, stop the Rahu if they're going first. Then you can ogre things like Malulu or Cartasia only if your opponent has less cards in hand. If they only have like one or two in hand, I'm always ogreing Malulu or Cartasia just because that's insane at that point. They lose the spellcaster, and a lot of times this will make the effect resolve without effect. Against VSK9, you really want to play the attribute control game. So if your opponent's trying to add back off Rock, then you want to throw Crow or Bell at the Rock just to make sure that you can stop the card from coming back to the hand, which is usually Rosin because your opponent needs the Fire attribute, or it could even be Mad Love because they need the Dark attribute. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. But it's usually Rosin, and getting rid of that is going to be way better for you than not. Throwing Nibiru at the Dice Smasher is going to be really nice here too, just because that card's still very popular. Ash on Rosin or Veiler Imperm on Rosin. Veiler Imperm is really mid because of the tag outs, but you still want to stop Rosin. It's still the game of stopping the attribute war. Ogre on Field Spell is still probably the craziest interaction you have against this deck. But Momento is the next one here. Definitely still the same as before, where it's just Crow on Gaddock and then Ash the Creation King. These are two of the most impactful hits that you can do against this deck beside belling Memento Fusion. All three of these in general are just really insane, and if you have these cards to answer these cards, a lot of times your opponent's not going to have the greatest time. you can Ogre the field spell and then Valor Imperm onto the horse. All of these interactions are a little bit harder to do now just because your opponent does have the Canine cards, which makes things complicated to Handtrap no matter what deck you're playing against if they have Canine cards. But these are still going to be objectively correct of where you want to throw your hand traps. If you enjoyed today's video, definitely go ahead and subscribe to the channel as we're almost to 26,000 subscribers. Definitely go ahead and follow the Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Instagram, and follow the TikTok if you haven't already. Thank you so much. Have a great day.